All right, guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me. Got a lot to talk about today. Of course, we got the Don Lemon thing still going on, where he, him, and some lefty cronies broke into a church yesterday and caused all kinds of mayhem and distress among the churchgoers. Uh, that's kind of a typical. I think the protesters are looking for new ways to try to stir up um, controversy, trying to get their message out, trying to bully people, trying to make and force people to see things their way. It's not a really good tactic because it um, makes them look really bad. There's lots of a lot of people who are up in arms over this. A lot of people, attorney generals, and who say they should get arrested. This is a federal offense. And Don Lemon, I'm sure, has made all kinds of money. He's getting all kinds of clicks and all kinds of attention, which is what he wants. Um, sort of a attention seeker. This is all for clicks. It was all clickbaity, and these people don't really necessarily believe in what they're talking about. But so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Watch some more clips that have come out. And also, there's a lot of fraud going on still. In addition to the Minnesota fraud, there's been fraud uncovered in New York. There's fraud now in California. And it's just going to keep going and going and going. It's going to get more and more and more. There's going to be fraud like crazy in all these states. California and New York, the fraud is going to be astronomical if we can actually get in there and dig through it all and figure it all out. Um, at this point, I think a lot of people would not be surprised if the entire $38 trillion debt is for all fraud money. It's like our leaders haven't been actually doing jack shit other than stealing all the tax money. And the Republicans have been weak with stopping it, weak with controlling it, weak with even being concerned about it until now, when the people are getting riled up. They've known that this has been going on. They know that this is a scam to funnel money back into the political parties. They know that USAID, they had to have somebody like Elon Musk come in and tell them, the professional politicians tell them that this money was getting stolen. Now, there's no way. They already knew that this was happening, and they looked the other way because a lot of times it worked out for them as well. Not only did both Republicans and Democrats get rich off of this scam and fund their own coffers for reelection, but they also had friends who got sweetheart deals and pathetic, useless, pathetic jobs that paid them $750,000 a year. They siphoned money from overseas accounts into their own bank accounts, into their lobbies, into their lobbyists' pockets, and all that kind of crap. And the jig is up, and the people are upset, and the politicians are trying their hardest. Right now, it's pretty much all Democratic politicians who are trying their best to make this fraud go away, somehow paint it as if it's racist, to care about the fraud and to look into it and to deport the illegal immigrants who are responsible for it. That doesn't mean not also arresting and holding responsible legal citizens. We want them held responsible too, of course. Duh. They need to go to prison as well. That's why everybody's calling for the arrests of Tim Walz and people like that, the leadership in Minnesota, because it's not about race. It's not about skin color. It's not about immigration status. It's about fraud. And we know that it was happening on a large scale within a specific community, Somali community. And it's not racist to think that that's where the fraud's happening. They have specific groups, specific ties between them, specific ways in which they've helped each other and they've worked together and they've coordinated this as a Somali community across multiple states. So if anybody is saying, well, you can't go and you can't assume that it's Somalis and you can't say that you can't group them all together and all that kind of BS, then they're liars and they're losers, and they're trying to prevent fraud because they know that the fraud is going towards the Democratic Party and to keep the Democratic Party in power in these states, and as a way to try to grow the power of the Democratic Party, because they don't give a crap about the illegal immigrants. They give a crap that the illegal immigrants are counted in the census so that they can get more congressional seats as Democrats. If the illegals couldn't do that for them, if they couldn't use the illegals to launder U.S. taxpayer money back into their campaign, then they wouldn't give a shit about the illegals. It doesn't have anything to do with them being kind or compassionate or caring or loving or any of that kind of stuff. If you hear people saying that kind of stuff, it's just total smokescreen bullshit. That's not how politics works. Really. The smokescreen is how politics works, and that's how they keep normal, honest people compliant and not paying attention. If a politician acts like they're kind, caring, and compassionate, you just look right past that and you know there's something going on. There's something they're trying to cover up. There's something they're trying to distract you from. Okay? And right now they're trying to distract us from all the fraud that's happening across the country, especially in Minnesota, but shortly to come in California, in Ohio, in Washington, in New York, in all the deep blue states. They've had fraud schemes been playing out there for a long time now. They've been getting away with it. They've been giddy and happy, tap dancing all the way to the bank to collect their fraud checks. And, this has been going on for at least 10 years, probably 15 years. And there's been very few consequences and zero consequences for politicians. And if anything, there's only been upside because the Democrats have won way more elections and have way more power than what they actually should have. And the reason that they have that is because of this fraud scam with the moving the illegal immigrants into sanctuary cities and juicing their census numbers so that they can get disproportionate amount of power. And they know they can't win elections. They know they can't win elections honestly. They can't win them straightforwardly. So they have to do these backroom dealings. They have to, bring a bunch of illegals into areas that people don't want them in and cram them down people's throats just so that they can get the vote, the census to increase their power, increase their presence in Congress, because they know that they can't just straight up win. Because nobody likes their ideas, because their ideas are stupid and will only do harm. But they don't care. They just want the power. So if that means defrauding the American people so that they can siphon the money back into their campaign coffers, that's what they're going to do. If it means defrauding the American people so that they can pay off illegals to vote for them in elections, that's what they'll do. If they have to pay an illegal immigrant to go and collect all the ballots from their apartment complex and illegally fill them out and put them in the drop box so that they can win elections, that's what they're going to do, because the Democratic Party has no morals. They have no checks on them. They have gotten away with all this stuff because Republicans are pansies who refuse to hold them responsible, who refuse to prosecute them for anything, who are going to just let Bill and Hillary Clinton not show up for their hearing, and they're not going to arrest them. They're going to act like they're going to arrest them, but they're probably not going to do anything about it because they're pussies. And this is the way things go. And so the Democrats are just going to keep getting away with fraud, most likely. So they're going to find some other way. Right now, it's through the NGOs and nonprofits, and through these grants and through all that kind of stuff. Now that's probably going to be shut down, at least in a large part. But that's not going to stop them from finding some other way to scheme their way into power. Okay? It's what they do. It's what they're good at. And the Republicans are always caught off guard. They don't, because Republicans don't think like that. We think, it's straight up. You win, you take, you good for you. If you lose, bad for you. And that's how it is. We try to get the vote out We try to go out and convince people to agree with our ideas, but we would never think up an idea to bring a bunch of illegal immigrants into our districts so that we could get disproportionate amount of congressional power. We would never think to steal trillions of dollars from Americans, give it to people overseas so that it can get siphoned back into our campaign coffers so that we can get elected. These are just, they're ideas that make you think that they just hate the American people, and that they couldn't care less about it. So, what are you going to do? We need to hold these people accountable. Somebody needs to go to prison. Tim Walz is as crooked as the day is long. He needs to be arrested. Keith Ellison needs to be arrested. Jacob Frey needs to be arrested. All the people involved in these $9 billion fraud in Minnesota, they all need to be arrested. Gavin Newsom needs to be arrested. The list is endless. And do you think any of those people will be? Bill and Hillary Clinton need to be put in prison. James Comey needs to be put in prison. Brennan needs to be put in prison. There's a laundry list of people. At this time in Biden's administration, they probably already arrested 10 people. They were not shy about arresting people. They arrested something like 40 people politically, all for political purposes, all lawfare. So anybody who's complaining about Trump using lawfare against his political opponents, well, he learned it from watching you, Dad, because he just watched you do it for 4 years. Never even had crossed our minds before. And then you guys went apeshit with the lawfare, and now Republicans are trying to use it. They're not doing a very good job of it. They're not very good at it because we still have a bunch of dinosaurs in the Republican Party who thinks it's 1992, where we can get along with each other and we can do bipartisan bills and we can cooperate and compromise. Those days are done. Those days are done. The Democrats have gotten so crazy and so far to the left and have gone out of their minds so much that they can't be compromised with. They can't be reasoned with. You can't talk through things with them. You can't sit down and have a beer with them and come to an agreement. No, because they're so brainwashed and out of touch with reality that you would not even be able to have a conversation with them. So now unfortunately, it just all comes down to power. And so the Republicans have to flex their power, punish the Democrats for what they've done, and retain power for 20 years. But unlikely that that's to happen, but that's what needs to happen and what should happen. And then at that point, the Republicans will probably become so corrupt, they'll need to be replaced. But at this moment in time, the Democrats, the corruption is so deep that the Democrat Party just needs to be destroyed completely, and something new that's more reasonable needs to be put in its place. So anyway, on that note, let's get into our first video here. We've got California must return more than $1 billion to the federal government after an audit by Dr. OZCMS and his team uncovered federal dollars being spent on healthcare for illegal immigrants. What? Illegal immigrant? Hakeem Jeffries assured me that there was no taxpayer money going for illegal immigrants. He assured me right there in front of Congress. He said that there wasn't any. I guess he was just mistaken. I guess honest mistake, right? Or just total lies, which is what they constantly do. Lie, lie, lie. Democrats are breathing, they're lying. So anyway, $1 billion spent on healthcare for illegal immigrants. Why do you suppose they're doing that? Why do you suppose they spend $1 billion on healthcare for illegal immigrants, even though that's not what the money's supposed to be going for? Any ideas? Anybody guess why why they would be doing that? You know what? I bet it's just because they're such kind people that they're willing to take money from other people and give it to illegals. Yeah, that's a real kind thing to do. But I bet that's what they think because they really care. They care so much about these illegal immigrants and their poor, sad lives that they had to leave to come here. And we just want to help them. Bullshit. All of it's bullshit. It's because they're buying votes, they're buying power. They want to attract illegal immigrants to their areas so that the census, when the census is done, it counts the illegal immigrants in the apportionment of congressional seats. So California has like 10 seats it shouldn't have because it's been paying taking taxpayer money and paying billions of dollars to illegal immigrants to inflate their numbers so that they get more power than they deserve. That's the very essence of corruption. I can't say anybody's surprised. No one's thought that California is a normal, reasonable state for many, many years. They're wrought with corruption. Gavin Newsom is the most corrupt governor in the country, probably in the country's history. Even Democrats are starting to recognize this in California. They're like, this guy sucks at being a governor. How does he waste $100 billion and get nothing done? Well, I wonder where that $100 billion ended up. I wonder if it went towards anything like illegal immigrants, or maybe his friends, or maybe in his own bank account, or maybe in Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. We're teaming up to combat healthcare fraud so the money can be used for American citizens who need it. American citizens. And it's just shocking to me that this would even be a controversial thing. Like, how can this not be something we unite as Democrats and Republicans over? Yeah, how about we don't misappropriate federal money? Why is that such a controversial thing? Why is stealing $9 billion a controversial thing? The Democrats should be right there in it with us. Yeah, get the fraud. We can't let American taxpayer money just be siphoned off to Mogadishu. The Somalis were carrying duffel bags full of money through the airport in Minneapolis, $700 million worth over 2 years of duffel bags full of money. And the airport knew about it. They flagged it. They did, but then nothing. Like, oh yeah, these Somalis, you know why? They just got so rich because 81% of them are on welfare. So they're just like building these amazing businesses that are very successful. So they just have millions of dollars in cash. None of it was legit. It was all stolen money. And they send it over. They take it over to Somalia. They fund Al-Shabaab, terrorist organization, Al-Qaeda terrorist arm in Somalia, to fund their war against the other tribes that these Somalis don't like. And not only that, they take it and they build apartment complexes in Nairobi and it's for their own personal gain. So there's no getting that money back. And the Democrats are moot on it. They couldn't care less.
Battle brewing in California. The Trump administration says the state owes the federal government more than $1 billion for health care given to illegal immigrants. William Lajeunesse has the story from L.A. Hi, William.
Well, Dana, there are two stories here, right? One is how rising costs have forced blue states to roll back health care for those without legal status. The other is the White House crackdown on eligibility. If states can't confirm those getting care are U.S. citizens, they have to pay the feds back.
We are auditing aggressively, and we don't like what we see.
In March, the Trump administration began auditing states that provide illegal immigrants with routine health care paid for by American taxpayers. Their findings? 7 states and the District of Columbia owe nearly $1.4 billion for using federal, not
Hold on. Let's take a look here. Let's see. Which one of these are Republican? California. Oh, none. All Democrat states. Huh. Imagine that. Huh. I guess I wouldn't have expected that.
District of Columbia owe nearly $1.4 billion for using federal, not state money for immigrant care. Topping the list, California, followed by New York and Illinois.
In California, we've
shocker.
already identified about $1.3 billion of federal dollars spent to take care of illegal immigrants.
Under the law, states can only use federal money for migrants' emergency care.
When you come for elective hernia operations or dental cleaning, that's not going to be paid for by the federal taxpayer. It's not right. You don't want folks in one state paying for people in another state without them knowing about it and voting for it.
California says claims it did anything wrong are, quote, flatly false, saying the state routinely reimburses the feds.
Universal health care for all, regardless of pre-existing condition, regardless of the ability to pay, and regardless of your immigration status.
After extending care to its entire undocumented population, rising costs forced California to impose premiums and stop accepting new patients. Other states facing rollbacks? Colorado, Illinois, and Minnesota, either cutting subsidies or dropping adults altogether.
It was cruelty dressed as fiscal responsibility. There is no other outcome for when you take away people's health care.
So there are 2 ways to see this. Some argue that immigrants are here, most work, and it's cheaper to pay for their care under Medicaid than the emergency room. Others say, stop the handout. If American taxpayers can't afford the insurance, why should they pay for it for someone else? That's a debate going on in each state. Dana?
We might hear about this later on the 5 as
Yeah, of course, they've got their excuses for why they do what they do. You know, there's always a good reason to break the law and to do things that the Democrats do. Oh, it's compassion, it's kindness, it's all this kind of crap. Do we want to get into the Michelle Obama being a racist? Nah, it's kind of boring. She's kind of played that hand a lot. You know, it's, yeah, sure, why not?
If I hear of someone whose fashion that I like and I know that they're a person of color, I try to make it a point. But the clothes have to be available. You know,
Aren't all people of color? I don't get it. Aren't all people a color? That makes no sense. So that that's everybody. She means black. She doesn't mean Puerto Rican or Chinese or, you know, white, of course, or anything like that. So why does she say people of color? We all know that she's talking about black people. She could just say that.
I think we can all do some work to think about that balance in our wardrobes. You know, what does our closet look like and who's in it?
Mm-hmm.
Who are we supporting in it?
Right.
You know, and I think if you have the money to buy Chanel,
Mm-hmm.
then you have the money to buy everybody.
Right.
And so let us be mindful. I think would be mindful.
Kind of typical, you know, of the wacky ass liberals, the race-based purchasing, you know. It's blatantly racist, but of course these people won't think that it's racist. People like Michelle Obama, these wacky liberals, they don't think it's racist. They just think that they're supporting the historically oppressed minority, and so it's okay to support them. And you know, they don't see anything wrong with it. They don't think that it's racist to specifically buy from someone, or to not buy from someone based on the color of their skin. Somehow the United States has devolved. We've gone back 60 years. We were making progress up till the 2000s, and then bam, Obama's getting power, and now they've thrown us way back into the 1960s with their critical race theory and their identitarian politics and their cultural, you know, socialism, where this is how they divide up the world. There's the oppressors and the oppressed, and so we always have to stand with the oppressed. And of course, the oppressors are always white people, and the oppressed are always people of color, or women, or gay people, or whatever. So, it is an interesting thing though, because so if you say oppressed oppressors, or majority bad, minority good, those kind of lines, like really sort of small-minded, cheap categories, but this is kind of the category they operate from. The majority is bad, the minority is good and noble somehow. And but then when it comes to South Africa, and you have the majority South Africans are black and they're oppressing the minority whites, then that's okay. Oh, well, that's because historically speaking, the whites had more power. Okay, well, so now it's about power. It's not about majority minority. So it's the goals are always moving. The excuses are always changing, and there's really no ideal. There's no real philosophical core to it. It's a feelings-based philosophy. I feel like this is right. I feel like the majority oppresses the minority. Of course they do. No evidence, really. No real solid logic behind it. It's emotion. Okay, so DHS just announced they've arrested 3,000 illegal immigrants in Minnesota tonight. This was last night. Walls Sanctuary Playground is getting cleaned out hard. So 3,000 in one night? Wow, that's a lot.
DHS announced tonight that they have arrested a total of some 3,000 illegal immigrants in Minnesota, including over the weekend, several convicted of crimes such as homicide and sexual assault. Meantime,
what? How dare they? How dare they arrest these people? These are our neighbors, right? This is the Democrat talking point. It's like, Democrats have gone so nuts on this point that they can't even they think that all they're doing is going around arresting. They're arresting citizens. No, criminals.
Several dozen
Tom Homan has been doing this for like 40 years. You think he doesn't know how to arrest criminals properly?
Protesters remain here at the federal building, protesting the actions of federal agents, but they are staying behind the newly erected barriers put here by the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department. It is a simple and effective, so far, measure that raises the obvious question: why didn't local law enforcement do this last week? Brett?
Exactly. Jonathan Hunt live in Minneapolis. Jonathan, thanks.
Because local law enforcement's in cahoots with the Democrats, and they all want the crime. They want the criminals out on the streets. They want the crime. They don't want to lose. Even a criminal, illegal, is still a voter gives them census power. Okay, so you got to understand what's really behind this and why they're dying on this hill of illegal immigration. Even criminals like Kilmar, Brago, Garcia, because every illegal, criminal or not, who's in their district gives them more power in Congress, because the census counts those people whether they're criminals or not. So they don't even want the criminals deported because it's going to cost them power. That's all that this is about. It's all that it ever will be about. It's all it ever was about. It's not about the people at all. It's not about the safety of the communities. It's not about upholding justice and holding people accountable for their actions. It's nothing to do with any of that stuff. What it has to do with is Democrats keeping control of power. That's why they oppose the SAVE Act. That's why they don't want voter ID. That's why they don't want illegals deported. They don't even want illegal criminals deported. That's why they don't let ICE come into their prisons and take the illegals who've committed horrific crimes and deport them out of our country, because they don't care about the crime. They don't care about any of that. All that they care about is maintaining the power in their Democrat strongholds and trying to grow it. As gross and disgusting and pathetic as that sounds, that's what it is. That's why they're fighting this so hard. That's why they're funding all these protests so much. That's why they're trying to get so much attention onto all this. That's why they lie and they distort and they talk about ICE is kidnapping people and disappearing people and trying to paint them as the Gestapo and all these kinds of tactics to get it to stop, to get public opinion against it so that Trump stops. Well, it's not stopping. It's not going to stop. And they're going to have to just keep throwing fits. So, and even from the Republican standpoint or Donald Trump's standpoint, there's a reason he's going specifically into these Democrat areas. All right. Because he knows that that's their game. That's the game they're playing. That's the reason they're defending these people. And if he can get these illegal criminals out of those areas, then he can cripple the Democratic power. Okay? He can take away that artificial power that they gained through the census by having these illegals in their cities. That's why he's targeting blue states, and that's why he should be targeting blue states, because that's a shitty thing to do to the American people, is to gerrymander the elections with this backdoor way of doing things. And then they give these illegals, hey, we'll give you money, we'll give you health care. This is why these illegals are getting all this stuff in these blue states, is because they want to attract them there so that they can get more apportionment of congressional power, so that they can stop Donald Trump, so that they can take power, so that they can retain power, because they know that their ideas are so hated and disgust Americans so much that they couldn't, in a legit way, get this power. They know the American people lean conservative, so they know that they have to pay illegals to come into their states so that they can artificially inflate their population, so that when we apportion political power, it's just about how many people are in your district, not about how many citizens are in your district. Okay? It's about how many people, not how many citizens. So the Democrats figured out a way to scam the system so that they could take the power. And that's what they're doing. That's what's behind all of this. It's easy to understand all the crazy stuff and why Democrats would be in favor of why they would protest for rapists who are illegals, and they don't want Donald Trump to deport them. They want them to leave them alone because it's our brother and our sister, and we're all one big happy family, and they're our neighbors. And how dare Donald Trump, come into our neighborhood and kidnap our neighbors? It's all a smokescreen, total bullshit. Sure, that's what they have the people on the street thinking, and that's what they have the normal uninformed Democratic voter. That's what they think, because they can just blast that out on CNN and say, Donald Trump's disappearing people. He's arresting citizens. He's murdering and killing and all this kind of stuff. Masked thugs, Gestapo, where's your papers? And so the normal people just buy that hook, line, and sinker, because they've been so brainwashed and they have Trump derangement syndrome so badly that they're anxious to adopt any kind of ridiculous narrative that the left-wing media throws out there. But it's all ruse. It's all fake. None of that stuff's happening. It gets the base all riled up. It gets these people with no lives out in the streets to protest, to try to block ICE, to try to cause enough chaos and mayhem and disorder to where maybe they can get public opinion in their favor to get Donald Trump to stop, to get ICE to stop, to give ICE such bad publicity. This is why they want martyrs. It's why they need martyrs, why they need people to get harmed and injured, and they need video evidence of ICE doing bad things, and they're having such a hard time getting it because ICE isn't doing those things. But they want nothing more than to get some kind of like generational picture of ICE doing something really bad, like just, you know, beating the shit out of somebody for no reason. And then that would turn public opinion against these ICE raids, and then they would stop, and then Democrats could keep all their ill-gotten gains and their ill-gotten power. That's really what's going on here. Democrats don't care. They're not any more kind or loving towards illegals. It's not about being a melting pot. It's not about being open to the other people. It's not about helping refugees who are in a bad situation have a better life. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about paying off illegals to come live in your Democrat city so that you can get more apportionment of congressional power as a Democrat. That's it. And if they can scam the system and have some of these illegals vote, then it's a double benefit because, you know, then maybe they can win the electorate then. But don't be fooled, okay? Don't be a sucker. See this for what it is. It's a purely political move by the Democrats. It's not kindness, it's not compassion, it's not empathy, it's not any of that stuff. Throw that all out the window, okay? Don't let them distract you with nice words, okay? So I thought this was pretty nice. And I've yet to hear CNN or any Democrat media talk about this and to thank Trump for it. Because you know what? Turns out they don't actually care about Black lives or murders in inner cities. They don't care. Democrats never have, never will. They've effed over the Black community now for 60 years, and they're continuing to do it. They refuse to even talk about something that happens that's good for them. So here's Mike Davis. He says, we have not had a single murder this month in D.C. That's a great thing, right? Not a single murder this month. Now, it's pretty disturbing that that's some kind of big achievement, right? Like, oh, we haven't had a single murder. Like, well, yeah. Shouldn't that be how it is? Like this is like some impressive feat. First time since 2013. First time they've had a month without a murder since 2013 in, basically 12 years, maybe 13 years. They haven't gone a single month without a murder until Donald Trump comes to power and he sends in the National Guard and he shuts the shit down. And now there isn't a single murder. Murder rates dropping like a rock, even though all the authorities there, the police chief and the mayor were talking about how, we've been reducing crime, reducing murder. We've got this under control. Then somehow Trump comes in and then the murder's solved. And that's a good thing. If you actually cared about the Black community, because that's where the majority of these murders happen, if you actually cared about Black lives and you actually cared that they were getting murdered and you don't want them to get murdered, you would be praising this. You would be happy about this. You would be talking about it. But because it's Trump and Trump bad, we can't like the fact that a bunch of Black people just didn't get murdered. This is the craziness that the Democrat Party has become. Trump's federal takeover and surge of federal law enforcement have saved Black lives in violent D.C. neighborhoods. This makes Democrats angry. Yes, it does. And somehow they still get, 80% of the Black vote, even though they don't give a shit if you're getting murdered in astronomical numbers every month and every year. And the Democrats think that they so own the Black community, they just throw them some more money, and the Black people will just be like, okay, we'll get murdered, I guess, as long as we get some money. Thank you, Democrats. You guys are awesome. Hopefully their eyes are opening and they're starting to claw their way out of the the brainwashing that the Democrats have brainwashed them with for the last 60 years, because it has not been a positive for their communities. They've been neglected like crazy. They get thrown some welfare on the side, and then the Democrats just expect their vote while they're living in hell. Because Democrats do not actually believe Black Lives Matter. That's 100%. They don't actually believe it. They haven't done a single thing to try to they haven't done all the things that we know stops it. So even when Trump went in here, remember those people saying things like, Brandon Johnson, I think, was one of them, who was going on at the time, the mayor for Chicago, that putting people in prison does not reduce crime. More presence of law enforcement does not reduce murder. And yet here we are. First time since 2013. Not a single murder this month. Turns out more police presence actually does reduce murder. That's it. It's not like this was some kind of wave a magic wand or some kind of really complicated issue that required all this coordination and all these things. And, it's going to take so many years and years and years and years and years to figure out how to solve this murder problem. No, you just need more law enforcement officers enforcing the law. Boom, done. Problem solved. So why have they not done this for 60 years, especially the last 40 years? Neglect, no care. Let 0.5% of the population in these areas just run fucking crazy, shooting people constantly instead of just arresting them so that the rest of the people can live in peace. But they don't care. Because if they lived in a nice, peaceful neighborhood, they wouldn't need the Democrats to act all like they're protecting them and taking care of them. They could take care of themselves. So they need the chaos. It's disgusting. But it's the Democrat way. I can't believe they have any voters left anymore, honestly. Oh, Don Lemon. Okay. Now finally to Don Lemon. This joker. Lemon is beginning to panic. The backpedaling has begun. Lawyer up, big guy. I got a couple different ones here. Let's see. Okay, Jennifer Wells. She's crazy. Okay, yeah. So this is Don Lemon making a video after...
MAGA administration and the fake news MAGAs are losing their mind over something that's not even true. So let me just make it clear.
Of course. Well, it's the first thing. Denial. Oh, it's not even true. You guys are liars. No. Everybody can see the video plain as day. You went in there. You're acting like an activist. He's going to claim, I haven't seen this yet, but he's going to claim, I've seen some of his other videos. He's going to claim that, I'm just a reporter there. Just reporting on the facts, on the issues. I'm not an activist. Who buys that?
Assistant Attorney General, I don't know, gosh, what's her name? Something Hammett, Gillen or whatever. So I had no affiliation to that organization. I didn't even know they were going to this church until we followed them there. We were there chronicling protests. Once the protest started in the church, we did an act of journalism, which was report on it and talk to the people who were involved, which included the pastor, members of the church, and members of the organization.
So this asshole goes into a church, breaks into a church, and protests with these protesters, and he's doing journalism. But Nick Shirley goes and exposes all this fraud in Minnesota, and they're like, who's this guy? He's not even a journalist. He's not even doing journalism, even though all he was doing was actually chronicling it. This guy was antagonizing people. This guy was part of the protest. This guy was thought that this was a great thing and a good thing. And sometimes it hurts people when you do protests, but that's the whole mission.
That's it. It's called journalism. First Amendment,
activist
all that
journalism.
Stuff. For all of you people who believe in the First Amendment, absolutist, There you go. So why don't you talk to the actual person who is in charge of the organization and whose idea it was to have the protests at the church before you start blaming me for stuff for which you have no idea. Thank you for it.
Yeah, he's freaking out. He's trying to distance himself from it. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly why he was doing it. He didn't think he would. This is typical Democrat worldview. They think that there's not going to be any consequences because what I'm doing is just and righteous, even though it's against the law. But it's good because it's a righteous cause. So, but you broke the law. So, whether you think it's a righteous cause or not, you still broke the law. It's the entitlement, the Democratic entitlement mentality. They think that the laws apply to you, not to me. Because I'm so pure and my motives are so pure and my beliefs are so right that there couldn't possibly be any consequences for what I'm doing. And if somebody does hold me responsible for the things I did, surely it's because they're evil and they're racists and they're hateful. They have no consequence of accountability. They can't even imagine that they would be held accountable for their actions. It's like not even part of their philosophy of life. They can't imagine a scenario in which they should be held accountable for their actions because they think everything they do is morally pure. And this is what emotionally charged people, this is how they think. Their brains don't work right because their emotions are overriding their rationale and their logic. But I feel like it was a good thing to do. I feel like these people are white supremacists, even though I have absolutely no proof that this entire church is full of white supremacists, which is what this dipshit thinks. I have no proof of any of that. But I feel like that's probably true. I feel it in here. So it must be true because feelings are like the most true possible thing. That's why nobody who actually thinks about things can take these morons seriously, because this is like the laziest way of thinking about things you possibly could have. You know, pure emotions-based thought. Don Lemon loses it after a much smarter man shuts down his gaslighting attempts at the Minnesota church that was stormed by far-left agitators. Lemon was seen harassing the man and following him around as he tried to leave. They've emptied a house of worship. Everybody has gone home. Their point has been proven worthless. And so in the end, I think they lose, the man said. But more importantly, if I were to break into any of their houses uninvited, cause derision and upset according to their values, I would be kicked out. Yeah. You know, this is...
These people have come into our house and they've interrupted our worship. This is a house of peace, and we try to proclaim that. And this stirs division and rancor. And in the end, it's not helpful. Ultimately, I believe they've lost. They've emptied a house of worship. Everybody's gone home. Their point has been proven worthless. And so, in the end, I think they lose. But more importantly, if I was to break into any of their houses uninvited, cause derision and upset according to their values, I would be kicked out ultimately. It's not a good way. I feel violated. I feel interrupted. I feel angry.
I like that this guy he's using a feelings-based argument. I feel violated. I feel, that's smart. You know, that's something that, what are they going to say about that? That's how you feel. They can't argue with it because it's your feelings, and your feelings matter the most, and that's how it goes. But, you know, he makes a good point. You know, this is private property. Okay. It's not public property. So you have the right to protest on public property, not on private property. You can't come to my lawn and protest because you're not welcome unless I want you there. So you can't come into a private property like this and do these kinds of things. Now, these protesters are so brain dead, and they have such incapacity. They're incapable of thinking beyond like what their next meal is, that they just think everything's public property. Because it's a church, you can just go in there and do whatever you want. And it's a really bad look for them, I think, honestly. I don't think there's going to be many people who look on this, even people who are probably on their side, who look on this and go, that was well done, guys. You really advanced the movement there. That was really, you really accomplished a lot. Not at all. I think that, probably 75% of people are going to look at this and say, whoa, that's too much. That's over the top. That's, right off the bat, 50% of the population is going to be like, what in the hell? Because they're going to be Christian or they're going to be religious of some sort, and they're going to put themselves in this situation and say, that's not right. You shouldn't be going into places of worship and trying to force your ideology on people and intimidate people. And, you got kids crying in the back because they're scared. And just not too long ago, there's somebody came into a Minnesota church and started shooting people. How were these people supposed to know that's not what was going on here, that they were going to get shot? But these protesters don't care about any of that stuff. So the kind, compassion, we just care about the immigrants. We just care. We're so kind-hearted. We're so loving. Couldn't give a shit about any of these people in this church. Couldn't give a shit about the kids who are terrified and crying. Couldn't give a shit about intimidated. So the whole kindness, compassion, empathy thing, it's total bullshit. Total bullshit. It's situational empathy, situational compassion. If you're the people that we like, then we have compassion. If you're the people we don't like, we don't have compassion. They don't have compassion across the board for everybody. It's total BS. They're no different than anybody else. Everybody has the same amount of compassion as they have, if not more. But they act like they're these really good people who are just trying to stand up for like the down and out, like Jesus would have done, as they're then terrorizing other people. But these are the means justify the ends kinds of people. If this is what it takes to push their agenda and get their voice heard, then they don't care who gets harmed. They don't care if somebody stands in the way, gets hurt, they don't care. So not really compassionate at all. Not really empathetic at all.
May I ask you something? When you were saying if you had showed up at their house, they're saying that people are showing up at houses where there are citizens without due process and breaking and entering the house. One that we saw, I've been watching from New York, with a battering ram into someone's private property, and there's no recourse. There's no, you understand what I'm saying?
This is all part of a much larger dialogue, in my opinion. On one side are people who watched a previous administration bring 12 million people in over the course of 4 years, and many of them undocumented, many of them criminals, etc. This is another administration's corrective. Now,
you suppose any of these people have actually accomplished anything in their lives? Run a business, start a business, done anything that's like worthwhile, have a family, raise a family, I don't think I think a lot of these people are just kind of lost. They feel like they don't really have much to offer. They're looking for a tribe that can, sort of protect them and help them soothe their feelings of inferiority because they haven't really achieved anything in life. And this is why they go to these kinds of things. If they actually were leading productive, meaningful lives, this wouldn't be attractive to them at all. The people in that church are not people who feel the need to do this kind of stuff because they have meaning, they have purpose, they have connections, they have all this stuff. And these left-wing agitators are the ones who don't have that stuff. And they find their meaning and purpose in doing this kind of stupid shit. And it makes them feel, it inflates their ego so that they feel like they matter more than they actually do in real life. This is a way to kind of boost that ego. And it's embarrassing, but you know, they don't know what else to
Whether
do.
you agree with the policies or procedures, I think I could actually be sympathetic to some of the things where there have been challenges to fashion and decency. At the same time, these are what are called targeted interventions by ICE to keep the American people safe.
If I respectfully may interject here, I've been out reporting on a lot of these, and they're not targeted. There are no warrants signed by a judge, let me finish. And they're American citizens, many of them. Most of the people that they detain don't have criminal convictions or criminal.
Okay. They keep saying this. Most of the people detained don't have criminal records. That's not true at all. 70% of the people that get detained have criminal records. Okay. The other 30% are usually people who get caught up in the sweep because there was just one guy who's arrested. He was a citizen, but he was harboring 2 illegal aliens that were wanted for rape. So yeah, some citizens also get caught up in this, which then when we get it figured out, we'd let the citizens go. These people like Don Lemon are acting like these citizens are getting put in a dark hole somewhere and they're getting tortured and they're getting their hands chopped off or some stupid shit. None of that's happening. Holman has been doing this for 40 years. He knows how to do it. He did it for Obama. Obama gave him a medal. Now he's doing it for Trump and somehow it's evil. It's the same thing. Same tactics, same strategy, same everything.
I'm not going to get into the weeds.
But you should know that, though. Don't you think that's part of it?
Yes. And
why should he know that you're fake stat? How would he even possibly know your fake talking point stat that's only things that the left say just because they lie and just make shit up? Oh, no, actually, I think it's 110% of the people that they've arrested are citizens. Yeah, it's 110%. I think 1,000%. Actually, every single one of them has been a citizen, and every single one ICE has murdered. Yeah. How do you not know that? How do you not know that? Right? Because it's a fake stat. If a Democrat or leftist is telling you a stat, that stat is a lie. Always assume that. These people are terrible at stats. They make shit up because your emotions will make up whatever stats they want to. Because Don Lemon feels like 70% of the people arrested are innocent citizens. Because he doesn't like what's going on. That's it. That's what the stat's based on. Kristi Noem, who's in charge of this whole operation, says 70% of them have criminal records. I'm going to go with her over Lion Don.
Also show you many opposing sides where we're also picking up the very criminals that have put Americans in danger. And I'm not saying it's pretty. I'm not saying it's not messy. I'm not saying it couldn't be better. I'm saying this is a part of a much larger dialogue in which one administration caused a great deal of chaos and havoc and danger for American citizens, and another is trying to correct that.
Do you believe that? Why? Honestly,
Okay.
let me talk to you
Listen,
just on the
you're not
facts.
a journalist.
Yes, I am. I want to give you the facts.
No.
Did you know that undocumented people and immigrants commit far less crime than American citizens?
Also not true.
We're done here. We're done here.
Then natural-born Americans. You won't listen.
If you could ask,
I'm giving you the facts. It is.
Give me facts. I would have a conversation.
But I can respond to you.
No,
Did
Jesus stand with the oppressed?
Because he doesn't want to listen to facts.
That's because you don't have any, Don.
That's the interesting thing about.
Oh, actually, did you know that illegal immigrants actually pay most of the taxes in this country too? Did you know that? Did you know that illegal immigrants actually fund 99% of the charities? See, these are the kinds of facts that Don Lemon comes up with. It's just like, he just makes stuff up. They commit crime at far lower rates than, no, they don't. Legal immigrants do. But they don't even categorize crime stats based on immigration status. So how would Don Lemon even have access to this kind of information? When you commit a crime, they don't say, oh, are you illegal or are you illegal? That's not one of the categories they use. So how would Don Lemon even know that illegal immigrants commit less crime? He doesn't. He's just making shit up.
This is that they won't listen to facts.
I just don't. No.
You won't because
when you pose as a journalist,
I am a journalist. Journalists give facts,
and then you start correcting me with facts, and don't have.
You shouldn't hear the facts.
Of course, I
most
should
of the
hear
people
facts.
who are picked up
but will you
not,
give me the facts on both sides?
That is the facts on both sides. Most of the people who are picked up and are detained are not convicted. They have no criminal convictions. They have no criminal record.
Not most.
None. That immigrants commit far less crime than native-born Americans. So they won't listen to the facts. Anyways, these folks are still out here.
And then when you don't listen to these people because they're so fucking batshit crazy and they're liars, then they're like, oh, see, this guy doesn't like listening to liars. What's the matter with him? Well, because you're a liar, Don. So why would he want to talk to you? You should be grateful that he even gave you 4 minutes of his life, because you're a complete hack who's an activist that claims he's a journalist. And everybody knows it. That guy could tell it right away. Pathetic. All right, let's hear what these two scholars have to say.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not.
Now this is fresh. This is Don Lemon talking about other people being entitled. You can't find a more entitled asshole than this guy. But he's saying, no, these churchgoers somehow are entitled. They're just going to church. That's it. You're the one who broke into their church service, disrupted everything, would act like a total asshole to everybody, and then they don't like it, so that's because they're entitled. They're racists.
The type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy.
Oh gosh. He can't even do an interview without bringing up white supremacy. Oh my gosh. Oh. What is white supremacist about going to church and not wanting to be interrupted? If they disagree with you, it's white supremacy. These people are so retarded and unhinged. I just can't even get over it.
Supremacy. And they think that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much.
So he doesn't know that any of them believe this. He doesn't know that any single one of those people in this church believe this, but it's okay for him to just attribute these horrific things to this whole group of people. But then if you do that to the Somalis, you can't do that to the Somalis, but I can do that to this whole group of people over here. So it's also their hypocrisy. If liberals didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. This is how they think. It's how they operate. They pick and choose. They cherry pick. They feel. They whatever. Their logic is completely corrupt and retarded the whole time they talk. It's not even worth talking to these people, because these are the kinds of conclusions they come to with zero evidence, and they feel totally justified in it. And this bitch on the left here is going to just totally agree with him. Black man speaking, black man right. That's her attitude. And it's like, you don't get a more entitled person than her. You don't get more racist than her and him. But they think that they're the virtuous ones. The whole time they're being these bigoted racists. Make it make sense.
And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I've become the face of it when I was a journalist. I do understand.
They're doing intimidation tactics. They're doing intimidation tactics. You just barged into their church during a Sunday service, yelled at everybody, caused a ruckus. You got kids crying in the background. terrified for their lives, not sure what's going on, thinking they might get shot because Minnesota church shooting happened not too long ago. And they're the ones who are using intimidation tactics. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. See, this is another part of this projection. If they're blaming you for something, okay? If people like this, these off the rocker, loony ass leftists are accusing you of something, it's the thing that they're doing. He was involved in the intimidation tactics. Now, if somebody pushes back on it, oh, they're intimidating. Trying to intimidate me. White supremacy. It's because these people have instead of a brain, they have a P in there. It's a P for a brain, not a real brain, because no normal person would be this fucking stupid to come to these stupid conclusions.
Saying that I'm the biggest name there. And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay black man.
Yeah. All right. There you go. There you got it. Oh, the only reason anyone would be upset with this, the only reason anybody, and they would be attacking me for leading and publicizing and getting clicks and using this to further my name. The only reason anybody would be upset about that is because I'm a black gay man. Yeah, that must be it. Yeah, that must be it, Don. Yeah. So I can do anything I want to with no consequences, with no not being held responsible for anything. Because if I am, I got this little thing right here. I'm a gay black man. Can't do anything to me. It's the way that they try to skirt responsibility for their behavior. These people are allergic to accountability. And the second accountability comes to them, they try to deflect it. They use as their shield, their little labels. Oh gosh, it's because I'm black. It's because I'm a woman. It's because I'm gay. So you can't do anything to me. I can do whatever I want. It's very childish. It's very pathetic. It's very stupid, but it's about the best weapon that they have in their toolbox, because they don't have reason, they don't have logic, they don't have good arguments, they don't have they don't have virtue, they don't have morality, they don't have anything else to use in their defense. So they have to fall back on stupid shit like, well, because I'm a black gay man. It's cheap, it's dumb. But it's worked for them for like 15 years, and they haven't realized that game doesn't work anymore. They haven't realized that nobody gives a shit about either of those things anymore. That's not why people choose to do what they do. That those don't have the same kind of cachet as they once had. You can't use your labels to silence people like you used to be able to. Now you actually have to make an argument. You have to provide actual evidence. You don't like to do that because it's not in your favor. So you think you can just intimidate and you can just shut people down by throwing things out there like this. But you're living in 2015. Don Lemon still lives in 2015. He still thinks people give a shit if he's a gay black man. No one cares, Don. No one cares. You do, because that was a currency for you that paid your way into a lot of spaces and got you out of a lot of accountability. So this is the dumbass who was there with him, who's kind of leading the charge of this whole thing. He's called the woke farmer or something like that. Mike Davis says this guy will go to federal prison. Woke farmer who stormed the church in St. Paul goes on a rant because Pam Bondi says they're going after him. Fuck those fucking Nazis. Come and get me, Pam Bondi. You the fucking traitorous bitch. Right. This guy, he thinks he's really something.
I went into a church with Nakima Armstrong and I protested these.
Did this guy just crawl out of his trailer house? I mean, I think he just got done cooking meth and rode his bicycle because he lost his driver's license to this church. That's what this guy looks like.
White supremacist. A pastor of the church is a fucking ICE leader in the city. How can you be a fucking pastor and be a fucking ICE agent?
Why can't you be a pastor and an ICE agent? I don't get it. Oh, because this guy feels like you can't be. All right, so we got more emotion-based argumentation here. Oh, I feel like you can't be an ICE officer and a pastor. Yeah. Why? Wow, because I got nothing.
Fuck them. They want to come after me? Fuck them. How can they live so comfortably while the fucking people from Somalia that are in this country legally, that have fucking citizenship, can't even go to their mosque and pray? How do they deserve any fucking different? Fuck those fucking Nazis. Come and get me, Pam Bondi.
The Somalis are going to their mosques and praying just fine. Nobody's attacking Somalis. It's not like there's riots dragging Somalis out into the streets. That's so stupid of a thing to say. The Somalis are fine. They're safe. They're doing their thing. But this guy, because he's all emotionally charged, he has to make up something. He has to act like somehow there's bad things happening in the Somali community. What's really happening is that people are getting arrested and investigating for stealing money. Now, why can't this guy say that? That's all that's happening. They're not just willy-nilly. They just bring in vans and semis and just throwing Somalis in the back of it. But that's what these people think. They're so emotionally wrapped up that they have they become totally detached from reality.
You fucking traitorous bitch. All power to the people. Yesterday,
all power to the people, except for the ones that I don't agree with, except for the ones I don't like. Then no power to them. Okay, here's the really, really smart mayor of Seattle, Kate Wilson, says she's refusing to investigate Somali daycare fraud in her city. These Democrats are protecting fraudsters who steal money from the American people. This is a very easy.
I mean, I don't think it needs to be explained.
Easy thing to know. It's not like these people act like this is so complicated. This is not complicated at all. Many members of the Somali community were responsible for making fake daycares and stealing taxpayer money and committing crimes. We, as taxpayers and American citizens, want those people held accountable for it. That's it. But the Democrats, they just can't even wrap their head around why somebody would want somebody to be held responsible for their behavior. Why would you if you want to hold somebody responsible for doing something bad, you must be the bad person. See how twisted this is? You must be the bad person if you want the bad person to be held responsible for their bad behavior. So once again, I'll say, this is not about the Somalis. This is not about fraud. This is not for the Democrats. This isn't about any of this. They don't give a fuck about the Somalis. They don't give a fuck about immigrants. They don't give a fuck about any of this stuff. The reason they're running cover for these people is because they just want more they want more illegals and more immigrants in their areas. They want illegals. They don't care if they're committing fraud. They don't care what they're doing. They want them in their communities because they can shovel a bunch of taxpayer money to them that comes back into their Democratic coffers, and because they can inflate their numbers on the census so that they can get disproportionately more congressional power. That's it. This is about power and money for the Democrats. They don't really care about the Somalis, and then throw them to the wolves as soon as they're not useful to them. This is the whole history of the Democratic Party. This is how they treat everybody. This is how they treat the black community. They'll just throw them to the wolves. They'll just forget about them. They don't care as long as they vote for them. Okay, well, as long as they keep voting for us, then we'll just ignore them the whole time, because what's the point? All we want is the power that we get from them. And it's no different with the illegal immigrants and all these refugees that they bring into their sanctuary cities, because It just is to inflate the census numbers, which then the census is what proportions out the congressional seats. And it doesn't matter if the people in your district are citizens or immigrants or illegals, they all count in the census. Okay? And so then we proportion the seats based on the population of the districts and so they get more power than they deserve. If there were no illegals and if we got rid of the illegals and the immigrants, the Democrats would lose about 50 seats in Congress. That's how dependent they are on these people. If Trump was successful in deporting 10 million of these people, the Democratic power base would absolutely collapse. There wouldn't be, they would lose every state. They would lose 3/4 of their congressional seats. Okay? So that's why this is such an existential threat to the Democrats, and why they do so much kicking and screaming and whining and complaining and virtue signaling and all that bullshit. That's why they do so much of that. And they'll pull out all kinds of fake sympathy and fake tears and crocodile tears on this and that and whatever. And that's why we can't hold them accountable, because they're our brothers and sisters and we got to take care of them and all that kind of stuff. And no. Don't be a fool. Okay? Don't be a fool. This is about power. That's what it's about. The Republicans can get rid of these immigrants, illegals. They can kick them out because they're defrauding the American people of billions of dollars. Then that necessarily destroys Democrat power and therefore increases Republican power. So this is a power struggle. So don't get fooled by these people who act like there's virtue in here anywhere. This is not about virtue or morality or caring for your neighbor or being kind or being like Jesus or being a Christian or any of that kind of stuff. Okay? They try to use that stuff to manipulate people to not care and to stop wanting to investigate and hold illegal criminals responsible. But it's just a smokescreen to try to distract you and to try to shut you the fuck up. So this is Seattle Mayor Kate Wilson.
I mean, I don't think it needs to be explained why it's problematic to have random people showing up to daycares.
Random people never show up to daycares? What if you want to put your kid in the daycare? That's problematic? How is that problematic? Wouldn't that be good for the daycare? They're like, oh, more business?
I think the fear in the Somali community is real. The fear in immigrant communities are real. So we're taking that very seriously.
What do you suppose the fear is in the Somali community? You think that they think that they're going to get like drug out into the street? No. There probably really isn't that much fear in the Somali community to begin with. But if there is fear, it's fear that they're going to get kicked out of the country because they stole billions of dollars from the American people. And all these transportation companies, daycares, Medicaid facilities, autism clinics are all bullshit scams that the Democrats let them perpetrate on the American people because they were siphoning the money back into their campaigns, and they were voting for them, and they were helping them commit election fraud. So they're scared that they've gotten found out, not scared that the people are going to do anything dangerous to them. They can walk down the street all they want. Nobody's going to do anything. They're going about their lives just like they do every day. The only fear is fear in the Democrats. The Democrats are the ones who are scared because they are scared they're going to lose their power. That's what the real fear is. See, these people are such shysters. They're such crooked, distorted thinking people that they just lie to you constantly. They won't tell you what this is really about.
Along those lines, have you asked anyone to follow up on the fraud claims, either to the Department of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs or SPD?
No.
Why would I ask anybody to look into rampant fraud? Why would I do that? Because you know what could happen. They could get caught and get moved out of my city, and then we would lose power. Huh? So these people, absolutely no concern for the fraud, absolute total disrespect for the American people, total disrespect for taxpayer money. They just take and use everything they possibly can to benefit themselves, to increase their power. They don't care if you're getting your money stolen. They don't care if they're killing you. They don't care if they're raping you in the streets. As long as it doesn't affect their power, they're fine with it. That's why they're happy to hold Republicans responsible for things, because they don't really believe in any of this kind of stuff. They just believe in political power.
So there's, as far as you're concerned right now, there's no reason to suggest there's any sort of fraud.
This whole issue is not really about fraud, right? It's about.
Hey, she's right. She agrees. I agree with her. This whole issue is not about fraud. No, it is not. It's about Democrat power. And that's probably what she's going to say. I bet that's what she says.
Dividing and conquering. It's about making an immigrant community a target, right? There's no reason to assume, based on the identity of a daycare operator, that their small business is doing anything wrong.
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to think that if a Somali is running a daycare that there's something wrong. Where would you even get the idea that there would be fraud if a Somali's running a daycare? Where would that idea even come from? That is so untrue and so far beyond that's how these people try to gaslight you. Like, listen, people are pattern seekers. We notice patterns. You see a Somali community committing this fraud, and then you see them doing it in Ohio, and then you see them doing it in Seattle, and then you just like, well, where did you get this idea that just because they're Somali, they might be committing fraud? Right? Total gaslighting, totally lying to your face, trying to manipulate you emotionally, because as Americans, we don't really like the idea of lumping a bunch of people together as a community and blaming them all for some of the bad apples in that community, even though they do it all the time to other communities that they don't like, but whatever. So they're trying to play on your emotions and they're trying to manipulate you. That's all that's going on here. Tens of millions. Okay. Nearly 70 million daycare and medical transportation fraud scheme busted in New York. Tens of millions uncovered weekly now. This is why our debt is exploding. Blue state grifters bleeding taxpayers dry with fake daycares and ambulance scams. It just doesn't stop.
We are turning now to the Big Apple, where new multi-million-dollar fraud schemes are coming to light. Just this week, 2 scammers pleading guilty to a $68 million fraud scheme tied to the state's Medicaid home care program. Leah, what are we learning on this?
Yes, Natasha, we've been looking into this just this past week, as you mentioned, 2 big cases in court involving millions of dollars in kickbacks and fraudulent billing to Medicaid. And we're talking about another notable case tonight that involves a program called CDPAP. Now, if you're not familiar with that, it is for people who need to be cared for, but they don't want to go to a nursing home. So through Medicaid, they can hire their own caretaker. They get to choose if it's a friend or a relative, as long as they go through the process. And while it sounds good, it is also a big target for scammers.
This is a program that is put in place to help care for people at their home instead of having them go in nursing homes.
Attorney John Flynn says while New York's Consumer-Directed Personal Assistance Program, or CDPAP, is meant to make things easier for loved ones who need care, it's also become the target of sophisticated scammers.
The actual program itself is for a good cause, but you have bad people out there who are taking advantage of federal and state money.
Just this past week, 2 New Yorkers pled guilty to a $68 million fraud scheme tied to CDPAP, billing Medicaid for services at Brooklyn-based adult daycares that never actually happened. These fraudsters were, quote, large-scale recruiters who bribed patients with laundered cash and billed Medicaid over $68 million for services that were not provided. New York Attorney General Letitia James announcing a separate $1 million plus conviction this week, also involving fake billing and kickback schemes tied to the state's Medicaid program. Unfortunately for the state's CDPAP program, fraud is nothing new. Back in 2018, a man arranged for friends and family members to be paid as home caregivers for his sick mom. Later, investigators found out that his mom wasn't even in the country. She was living in Bangladesh. And during home inspections, his brother impersonated her to keep the fraud going. Back in 2024, Governor Kathy Hochul calling CDPAP.
His brother impersonated his mom. Well, they're like, wow, that is one ugly ass mom you got there, son. So, you know, this is why this shit needs to just be shut down. These NGOs need to be shut down. The nonprofits, the siphoning of trillions of dollars of government money into these programs. We need to shut it all down. It's become too corrupt. Everybody's figured out how to game the system and to steal the money. It's not going to the cause it wants to be. So shut it all down, rebuild it from the ground up so that it at least gives us another 30 years before these people figure out how to scam it again. That's the way that this works. These things can only last for so long before they become so corrupt and the people learn how to take advantage of them. Then you have to burn them to the ground. You have to start over. That's what you have to constantly be doing. You need to shut down the CIA, shut down the FBI, shut down all these groups that they have become so corrupted and have been so all pervaded by political ideology that they no longer serve their purposes. Just like the Department of Education, you shut them down, out of business, and you start a new one. And you put people in there who are nonpartisan. And then eventually it'll become corrupt, just like it always does. And then you got to shut it down again and you got to build a new one. These things are not eternal things. They're not eternal systems, eternal institutions, eternal, ways of doing things. When they get to the point to where they've outlived their usefulness and now they're more of a detriment than they are useful, then you shut it down, you get rid of it, and you start a new one to accomplish the tasks that you're actually trying to accomplish. Now, there's a lot of people who have skin in the game with all these things, so that's probably never going to happen, but that's what needs to be done.
A quote racket in one of the most abused programs in the entire history of the state of New York. News Nation
because nobody's watching over it.
Office for comment on the recent fraud
you
charges.
Just give them money.
A spokesperson for the governor tells me she has quote taken steps to fix the system by cutting out hundreds of middlemen. Yet the fraud continues. And Natasha, the governor's office also telling me that one example of Letitia James busting the transportation company owner is an example of efforts to stop this kind of crime from happening. And when Republicans asked for an audit of the CDPAP program here in New York, Hochul calling that a political stunt, saying there are already measures in place. Clearly, a lot of government-funded programs are the target of scammers. And of course, President Donald Trump announcing recently.
Almost all this fraud and these scams are by non-native born Americans. I mean, maybe that's controversial to say. 90% of this money is stolen by people who are not natives to the U.S. They're foreigners in some sense. Either they're legal immigrants or they're illegal immigrants or they're second generation. They don't care. They find it as an easy way to make money. So they're not contributing to society. They're net detriment. And we just need to get them out of the country and shut these programs down so that they can't be taken advantage of, and think of a better way to do these programs so that they are immune to fraud. Think they'll do that though? That's never going to happen. This is just going to be a perpetual problem. We're going to keep finding more fraud, and they're going to arrest a couple people, and then you'll have a whole new series of people who are doing the fraud for the next 10 years. You can't solve this unless you shut it down, because the consequences of getting arrested are not bad enough for the people doing the fraud. You think it's worse to live in an American prison than it is to live in Somalia? They'd take American prison over living in Somalia. So how bad of a consequence is that? And they live there for a couple years, and then they'll go out and they'll go right back to it. So it's not a solution. All right, this is a Assistant AG Harmit Dillon says those who paid for, coordinated, or participated in the attack on a Minnesota church made a big mistake. She claims that Don Lemon is facing federal charges under the Klan Act for his role. Perp walks are coming. Now, wouldn't that not just be the most ironic thing if Don Lemon got arrested in federal charges for breaking the Ku Klux Klan Act? Oh, that would just be so funny. It would be so funny.
The people who did this made a big mistake, whoever they are. We are investigating exactly who they are, who coordinated with them, who paid for it, and who was there. And this will be met with the full force of the United States Department of Justice, as the Attorney General has directed. And we discussed yesterday with the pastor, who was totally shaken. He was with his family. We want to make sure everyone felt safe. And there will be further legal action in coming days. The people who did this made a big mistake, whoever they are.
Well, we'll see. You know, like, I don't have much confidence in the DOJ and the Trump administration actually arresting and doing anything of any importance with all this kind of stuff. It's just like they're just sitting on the sidelines waiting, you know, like they're building, supposedly secretly building some real big important case that's coming soon, you know, but we haven't really seen them actually do anything yet, you know? So I'm not all that optimistic that something like that's going to happen. So all right, guys, that's all the videos I have today. Let's see what we've got here. Let's look at some of these. See what we've got for comments. Oh, that reminds me, don't forget, like and subscribe, okay? Please, I appreciate it. Like and subscribe so you get alerted when I go live and all the videos that I post. Share these videos with people, post them on your social media, do whatever you want. Comment. I've got the comment section open. I try to read it as best I can. Sometimes it's hard for me to watch it as I'm talking about the videos, but you know, interact, comment on the videos, and that would help me out. So let's see. Yeah, so I got this guy trolling William. You still here, William? Trump, what a disgraceful, low life of a human in a leadership position. Spelled position wrong there, buddy. But oh well. So this is just like this emotional kind of outburst that I've been talking about. It's like they don't really have anything to say. They're just like, Trump bad. You know, I feel like a lot of these people are stuck in 2015 still. You know, it's like they still haven't learned how to actually analyze Trump and think about what he says and to interpret Trump the way that you're supposed to interpret Trump. Like a lot of us have, when he first came on the scene, it was sort of like shocking the things he would say. But now you just know that these are negotiation tactics, or these are ways of pressuring people into agreeing to his terms. Like that's all that this is, you know. But these people, they still associate, oh, Trump, he's just a terrible, disgraceful, low life kind of person. Not really. Not really. You know, like you guys arrested him on trumped up charges so that you could call him a felon, tried to put him in prison. And then you claim that he's protecting the Epstein files because he's in them and he's a pedo, you know, but all of which is just total bullshit, because Biden had the Epstein files in his possession, under his control for 4 years and didn't do anything about it. You think if there was something in there about Trump that Biden and his cronies weren't jizzing their pants so excited about it? There's absolutely nothing in there about Trump. That's why Biden never did anything with him, because it's like 95% of the people in there are Democrats, and it would damage the Democrat brand. It's easy. But these people are out of touch. They're so ridiculous that they just can't see Trump bad, he's pedo, you know. It's stupid. And no one should take them seriously. So, hey man, glad you're here. Good to see you. Appreciate it. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for me today. I appreciate everybody coming on here. I'll probably be doing more live streams, so make sure you subscribe if you want to get alerted to those. And I would appreciate it if you come in the comment section and have conversations with me and with the other viewers. That always makes it a lot more interesting for other people. So, but as we are, I appreciate it. Thanks. Have a good rest of your day.